Bullshit.
It's the No BS Marketing Show. I'm Dave Mastovich, CEO and founder of Mass Solutions, the world's only no bullshit marketing firm. It's great to be back in person for my workshop, Leveraging the Power of Storytelling for Leaders. I get the chance to go across the country to talk to leaders, chief executives, presidents, entrepreneurs, chief operating officers, director-level people, people making an impact at companies small, medium, and large in size. What I start out with is making sure that they realize that the vast majority of us are good storytellers in our personal lives. Yet, when we're in the workplace, we tone it down or don't work that muscle. So I explain that apply the same ways of communicating that you do when you're with your friends, your family, when you're doing something fun. Because you're then beginning to get more reps with your stories and your storytelling, and that's how we learn. That's how we motivate and educate, and how we have since the history of time. So it's natural for us to learn, be educated, and motivated from storytelling if our leaders continually use anecdotes and analogies to make their points. I then go on to explain that most of us have go-to stories that we use again and again, phrases or mantras that we repeat without even knowing it to make points. Sometimes it's a story or an anecdote or an analogy that we were told when we were young. Other times it's just something we've observed and we begin to say a phrase. I'll often have someone from the group, any group that I speak to, someone will raise their hand and say, "What do you mean? What do you mean phrases or stories that I repeat?" And I say, go ahead, text a couple people from your team and just say, what are the phrases or stories that I repeat again and again? Tell them that you have this speaker talking about leveraging the power of storytelling for leaders. And very quickly, you're going to get some text back of the phrases that you use again and again. And inevitably, during the break or after the workshop, they'll say, I did that, and I got 5 of them, or I got 4 of them, I got 3 of them. So you're already repeating phrases again and again. So the key is identify those ones that you use, and what point are they making? What's the big idea of that anecdote or that analogy? What's the takeaway? And now that you've got that, you can remember that any time that there's a problem in which that takeaway applies to, you can reference that anecdote or analogy because you've said it so many times that everybody knows what it is. Now you can maximize storytelling opportunities that you weren't thinking of. Maybe texting you don't think of as a vehicle to put in a story because you think that would take too long. Well, now you can reference one of your go-to phrases and say, we're all going back and forth on this issue, but it really comes down to X. And that's when you inserted your phrase and you've made your point. You can do that in a staff meeting, a one-to-one, a town hall meeting, an email. So now you're able to start making short bursts of communication tied to storytelling, anecdotes and analogy that are remembered by your target audiences, your employees, your team, your customers, your prospects, because you already say those phrases again and again. At that point, a good portion of the audience is nodding, but some raise their hand and say, I still don't quite get it, and my team hasn't texted back yet. I say, okay, I'm going to give you one of my anecdotes or analogies, one of my mantras that I've used since very early in my career. I was a leader in my first turnaround right out of college. I was a basketball coach at a very young age, coaching people only a few years younger than me. And I began using this phrase because I felt it made the point and helps us get around something that stalls our personal and professional growth. Here's what happens. Every time we make a mistake, we naturally look at what impacted us in that instance. And we fixate on that. But it might be that there's a recurring problem that happens again and again, and it's more of an issue than that instance. So my phrase is, it's the issue, not the instance. Let me give you an example. Let's say someone is late for meetings. Maybe they're late to work. Maybe they missed some deadlines. And each time they say, like, well, I was in a meeting with so-and-so and we got to working on Project X, and that's why I'm about 7 minutes late to this meeting today. Or traffic was really bad this morning. The weather was bad. That's why I'm a little bit late today. Or I was off sick on Tuesday. The deadline was Thursday. That got behind. That's why I missed the deadline on this project. All those things could be true. That's not the point. The point is the issue, not the instance. The issue is that this person has a time management opportunity. They have a prioritization opportunity. They have a personal growth opportunity. If they focus on the issue, not the instance. So that's one of my phrases. Now here's what happens. That gets the rest of the room nodding because they're hearing that I have this mantra, the issue, not the instance. And by now maybe some of their team members have texted back and they know that they have their own phrase that they've repeated, or it's a phrase from someone else. John Wooden's Pyramid of Success, or Mark Cuban says this. And so you repeat that. That becomes your anecdote or analogy. What's flattering to me is I then inevitably get texts and emails right after any workshop of people saying, I used the issue, not the instance this weekend with my family, with my son. I went through the issue, not the instance with one of my key team members. I talked about the issue, not the instance at a department meeting. That's gratifying to me because I am about personal and professional growth for myself and also for anyone that I work with. So one of my phrases is making an impact after each of those workshops. But again, to recap, the biggest points are this. We're good storytellers, most of us, probably almost all of us, in our personal lives, but we miss opportunities and don't think of it that way in our professional lives. So I always try to make that point about leveraging the power of storytelling for leaders, in that you have the ability to leverage storytelling. You already do in your personal life. The second thing is, I say there's all these channels, these opportunities that you aren't seeing as storytelling opportunities. Whether it's texting, emails, staff meetings, one-to-ones, the blog, whatever. You're not seeing it as a storytelling opportunity because you aren't thinking of it in a way that you can use anecdotes and analogies from your go-to phrases, the go-to stories that you tell again and again, so that they're short, concise, and memorable to your team, your peers, your boss, your clients, your prospects. And then I give you one example of one of mine, and my team will tell you I have many of them. And if you've read my content, you know I have many of them. But one example of mine is the issue, not the instance, which means don't focus on what happened when something went wrong that one time, because you'll often rationalize away some legitimate things that did hold you back. It could have been that there was traffic that made you late. It could have been that you were off sick one day that made you miss a deadline. But if these things are recurring, it's the issue, not the instance. So focus on the bigger issue, and you'll be able to build a plan to achieve personal and professional growth. I love storytelling. Anyone that's followed me knows that. I want to help anyone out there to leverage this amazing power of storytelling. So I hope the issue, not the instance, my little anecdote or analogy helps you. And I hope this episode helps you to understand how you too can become a great storyteller in your professional life. Thanks for listening to another episode of the No BS Marketing Show, recorded here in our studios in bold, beautiful downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea? And build your story around the answer. It's all about bold solutions, no BS.